All right, Steeler fans, it is Monday. It's time for the Monday morning conversation right here on the Let's Ride podcast. Joining me today, I'm really excited about this. He's usually on at 11 a.m. with Brian Davis. It's Coach KT Smith. You might have heard him with me in the NFL Whip Around, but we get to talk only Steelers right now. So, Coach, what's up?
Yeah, I'm excited, man. Just focusing in on the Steelers. You and I are usually spreading ourselves around, so this will be cool.
All right, so let's talk about this. You were in Latrobe, just another year, another trip. I don't know what it is about you going there and them not having pads on, but next year we got to figure out a way to get you either to Friday Night Lights, which is a guaranteed padded practice, or figuring out when you're going. But they didn't have pads on, correct?
No, they didn't. And it's funny because I looked at the schedule and I thought to myself, well, the Thursday morning they're having practice and Friday Night Lights will be 18 hours later. It's early in training camp. Oh, he'll definitely want to have the pads on. He did not. He did not. So, which is it's only frustrating if you're trying to evaluate linemen, because it's so much technique work and you can't get too invested in the 11 on 11. But it's a really good opportunity to look at the perimeter guys. So I really focused there.
Well, let's back up and let's talk about the trip itself. So you go to Latrobe. This isn't your first time. What was the vibe like? Was it any different than last year? Was there more excitement? Was there more trepidation? What was the vibe from everyone there watching?
I would say that this is the most number of people that have been waiting on the hill where the players come out at the very beginning of practice. For those who have never been to Latrobe, the field, the fans are on one side of the field. On the other side of the field are the campus buildings, and the players come out of these brick buildings and then down this hill onto the training camp fields, and they let fans line the hill, and they're trying to slap five and get autographs and things like that. This is the most packed I've seen the hill. And I wonder if that was the intrigue over some of the new players, Wilson and Fields and those types of guys. And the fans, it wasn't the most enthusiastic day because, again, they weren't in pads. It was hot, too. I think a lot of people were just, trying not to pass out from the heat. But there was a ton of people there. So it feels as though the interest is high.
As it always is with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I want to just pick your brain about what you saw, and I understand that it was a non-padded practice, so we can still evaluate, though. Let's start on offense. I'm not going to start with the quarterbacks. I'm curious about the wide receivers. Now, you wrote an article for SteelCurtainNetwork.com giving 10 thoughts on the day that was for your trip to Latrobe, and you said Van Jefferson showed up. What was your take on the receivers?
I won't say that I don't have concerns, because I do. But Van Jefferson looked better than I expected him to. For a guy whose resume the last couple of years has been modest, to say the least, he looked like a guy who you could plug in as your number two opposite of George Pickens in this offense. That's the caveat. I don't think Van Jefferson will translate to every offense in the league. If you put him down in Miami with the Dolphins, I don't know if he'd make the roster. He's not particularly quick. He doesn't leap out at you in anything that he does, but everything he does is professional. He's a good route runner. He blocks. That was the one thing that jumped out at me, man. He finished every play when I was watching him with his hands on a defender. If this is going to be the run-heavy offense that everybody anticipates it to be, then the wide receivers are going to have to block. He's a big body. So there were times when they did throw him the ball where he didn't create great separation, but he used his size, and he appears to be a pretty strong guy, and his strength to be able to sort of muscle his way open. So he impressed me. I felt better about him than I anticipated.
Okay, what about Pickens? Has he taken that step? A lot of people are saying, okay, this is his thing now. Deontay Johnson's gone. GP is wide receiver one. Is he ready to ascend to that level?
100%, man. He's a dude. He's a dude. He was open a lot. When they wanted to get him the ball, mostly off of play action, they could. And the thing that was most exciting was they attacked the middle of the field with him a lot. The ball is being thrown in the middle of the field more right now than any time I've seen that in recent years. Pickens, he had probably the longest play of the day where he beat everybody clean on a post route. Justin Fields hit him on a good one. Had a great catch in the end zone in the 2-minute drill where he just kind of went up over. I can't remember who the D-back was, but just it was like one of those snatch catches where he just snatched it over his head. He makes the catches he should make. He makes ones you don't expect him to make. His route tree's expanded. It feels like, he is the unquestioned wide receiver number one. If he doesn't get twice as many targets as the next receiver on the roster, it'll be a problem. I fully anticipate him to get the lion's share of the balls thrown to wide receivers.
So outside of route tree, was there anything else you noticed? It was a difference from last year to this year. Was there anything else that stood out that he's doing better than he was a year ago?
I think there's just the anticipation on everybody's part that he's the guy, because he last year when I went to training camp, I was like, oh, I want to pay attention to George Pickens because he was sort of emerging. This year, you didn't have to pay attention to him. He popped. He was noticeable without you having to sort of zero in your focus. Like I had to zero in my focus on Van Jefferson, and when I did, I saw some good things. But there were times where you just catch yourself watching the play, and you're like, oh, George Pickens. So he absolutely is a guy who will command people's attention.
So outside of Pickens and Jefferson, you have this hodgepodge. Roman Wilson's still injured with the ankle injury, so you didn't get to see him. But whether it's Quez Watkins, Calvin Austin III, Scotty Miller, what did you see from the rest of the receivers?
I saw some good things from Scotty Miller. He's a professional receiver. He's a pro's pro. He runs great routes. He really attacks people at the stem of his route. So the stem is the portion of your route before you make your break. The stem of his route is really aggressive. He can get down. He can get onto a D-back fairly quickly. And he knows this offense really well. You could definitely see some growing pains. Some guys not sure where they were going to line up, some miscommunications on routes, but he knows the offense. He's been in the system. He felt like he was playing a little faster than everybody. I could see him finding a role in the offense because he's a little bit of a jack of all trades. He doesn't do anything spectacularly, but like Van Jefferson, a smaller version of Van Jefferson, he does a lot of things well enough. And I think Arthur Smith's familiarity with him will help him. But outside of Scotty Miller, I have concerns, man. I don't see Calvin Austin worries me. He's not very big. You put him in the slot, he gets lost. He looks great in 7-on-7 because there's no line. But now all of a sudden you put all the big bodies on the field, and it gets hard when he runs across the middle of the field. You just lose him. And then if you're going to put him outside, he's 5'8", 165 pounds, man. Like the one time Joey Porter was covering him outside, and he couldn't get off the jam, and just Porter's length made it almost impossible. So he's going to have to play off the ball. Now, if the Steelers go into 3 wide receiver sets, you can put him at the Z receiver who aligns outside and move him around a little bit and create some space for him that way. But he's a guy that the Steelers are going to have to scheme him open. I don't think he's going to be able to get open within the logical progression of the scheme, and that's going to take some creativity. Quez Watkins, I didn't see anything from him. The back of the roster guys are back of the roster guys. My concern is the Steelers have a stud in Pickens, a workman-like starter in Jefferson. Maybe a fifth receiver in Miller, and until Roman Wilson comes back, what else? I don't know.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Let's talk about the rookies, especially on the offensive side of the ball, mainly the offensive line. Now, you can't judge too much without pads on, but what was your takeaway from Troy Falatanu, Zach Frazier, and Mason McCormick?
Troy Falatanu is a phenomenal-looking specimen, man. I mean, I took a picture of him and tweeted out that of all the linemen, just looking at these guys without pads on, he absolutely had the best physique. His hips, his legs. I mean, he looked like if you wanted to chisel out what an offensive lineman, what you want him to look like, he looks like it. So if he plays the way he looks and he moves great, I was watching him doing a drill with Pat Meyer. It's called a gallop technique. So gallop technique is when you're going to double team on like a zone run. And the guy who's uncovered, who's going to start on the double and will probably wind up chipping to the backer, He just sort of takes like a slide step into the man he wants to double and throws his shoulder into him. You're really trying to straighten that guy up and jolt him so that the lineman next to you who's assigned to him can get into great position. And when he would gallop into that sled and hit that sled, man, it was boom, man. Like you could hear the impact. He's a powerful dude. And I will be shocked if he doesn't become a early season starter. I don't know if week 1 he'll go in there, but he just looks too good to leave out of the lineup for long. I liked it. Mason McCormick, he was out there. He was one of the first people on the field early in practice, working out there with Isaac Seumalo, the two of them working together just on technique stuff. I thought, hey, man, if he's going to have a mentor, this is the guy. A great mentor to have in Seumalo. Zach Frazier was a little hard to get an assessment, again, without the pads on. He ran all the second team stuff. Herbig at center. Herbig's a big, thick body. But there was definitely some times where you saw Pat Meyer come in and have to correct something schematically. As I think Herbig's probably still catching up to speed. It's a new position for him and a new scheme. So it'll be interesting, man. I don't know when they're going to take an honest look at Frazier. It feels like Herbig is going to get the first crack at it. But I won't be surprised to see either of those rookies in the starting lineup fairly soon.
All right, let's go to second-year players, mainly Broderick Jones and Darnell Washington. What did you see from them, if anything at all?
I saw Broderick Jones in 92-degree heat wearing a long-sleeve compression shirt and long sweatpants over top of his lowers. And I was like, are you freaking kidding me? But then again, he went to Georgia, so he's used to this, the South. But my gosh, man. Again, not a ton going on with him that really makes you jump out. He looks good. He's fluid. Steelers are running a ton of outside zone. I would say that I didn't see a single lineman pull all practice long. And that was probably because, hey, they decided this practice we're really going to work just on this run scheme. It was overwhelmingly outside zone. And they ran it at Broderick Jones a lot, which tells you he's going to be their focal point of their run game. He's fluid. He moves his feet great. And if you're going to be an outside zone blocker, then you really need to be able to reach block defenders, climb up to linebackers. He's big and mobile, and that's a beautiful thing. Darnell Washington looks great. From a blocking perspective, he just swallows guys up. I mean, he was getting on the linebackers, and they just disappeared. They're trying to involve him a little bit more in the passing game, a little bit more in the play action game. He's not the most fluid tight end you're going to see, but he's 6'7", man. He's open when he's covered. So you can, I think they'll find ways to scheme him the ball that they didn't do last year.
Our last question about the offense before we go over to the defense for a bit. What is your takeaway from Arthur Smith's offense? Again, you didn't see a lot of it, and you didn't see anything with pads on, but schematically, you could probably see what he's trying to achieve in certain situations. What was your takeaway?
Well, my takeaway is as a defense, you better be prepared for everything that they're going to throw at you. The schemes are not overly complex. It's wide zone and it's bootleg and it's play action and the same passing concept everybody runs. But I don't think I saw a play where they lined up in the same look. The number of formations and shifts and motions. And I know Steelers fans might hear about the motion and say to themselves, oh, well, wasn't Matt Canada supposed to be a big motion guru? But it always felt like Canada was using motion like for the sake of motion. Like he thought like the motion itself would simply confuse the defense. But Smith's doing it a lot more strategically. I'll just give you one quick example. On one play, the Steelers lined up in a 3-by-1 set to the left. They had the tight end and a slot receiver and a wide out to the left with just a split end to the right. And then they flipped the tight end over to the right to make it a 2-by-2 set. And then after he got set, they motioned the slot over. So they went from 3-by-1 on the left to 3-by-1 on the right. And what that does is when you went 3-by-1 on the left, the defense set their strength to the left. They put Cam Hayward lined up to the 3-by-1 set. The strong safety lined up to the 3-by-1 set. And then you flip the strength totally to the other side, and you're now running against all the weak side defenders. And they were able to get Darnell Washington matched up on TJ Watt. And, TJ Watt's obviously TJ Watt, but running at TJ Watt sometimes a lot better than running away from him because of his ability to pursue the ball. And they then ran an outside zone concept that hit nicely to that side. So the point is, I think that Arthur Smith is going to use all these shifts and motions to create matchup advantages. And that's going to be a big advancement over what we saw last year, which kind of felt like the motion was a little bit of like a fire drill.
Yeah, I mean, you've seen situations just in videos where, you know, they go to the bunch set and they're getting George Pickens on Patrick Queen, like some really interesting stuff. I'm really curious to see if that translates into the preseason and into the regular season. But let's go to the defensive side of the ball. I don't want to focus only on the offense. I want to know about the cornerback. So we know Joey Porter. You mentioned him already, blanketing Calvin Austin III. What about Dante Jackson? Did you see anything from him?
So the one note I made about Dante Jackson, I really liked this. Dante Jackson was playing corner. Cam Sutton was playing safety. So Cam Sutton got some reps at safety. They may just be sort of trying that out because he's obviously going to miss a big chunk of time. But they miscommunicated on it. They were running 2-on-2, two receivers against 2 D-backs. And Jackson and Sutton miscommunicated. And Scotty Miller wound up popping free, and they hit him for what would have been a touchdown. And the very next rep, Jackson came back and had a great pass breakup on a throw to Quez Watkins. And my takeaway was he's a pro's pro. He's not going to unravel if he makes a mistake. The bounce back was great. He communicated a lot. Like when I looked around at the DBs, you see Porter going to the single receiver side where you usually put your best receiver. And he's in lockdown mode, man. He's playing a lot of press, getting his hands on guys. Nobody threw at Porter, man. It was almost like when Justin Fields came up to the line of scrimmage, he looked at Porter and said, all right, I'm not even going to worry about that side of the field. But on the other side of the field, Jackson, he's usually to the multiple receiver side. That involves a lot of communication because that's where you get all your different route concepts and the combo routes and those things. And he was very, very active, man, with his hands, with his voice, communicating to the safety, to the nickel corner, whoever that was. And I like that. He's a pro. He's a guy who's been around the league. He knows how to play corner. He struck me as a guy who is going to be able to kind of be plugged into a defense that does a lot of stuff and be successful at it because he's a veteran and he understands multiple coverages.
Well, what about after Jackson? That's the biggest concern. You mentioned Cam Sutton. He's going to be out for the first 8 weeks of the regular season due to suspension. What about after him? Is it Corey Trice? Is it Darius Rush? Did you see anyone else that popped on the field?
I saw some good things from Darius Rush. Corey Trice not getting a lot of reps. I think
they're still easing him back in from his injury.
Yeah, I wanted to see him. He was a guy I was going to make some notes about, but there just wasn't much to see. Yeah. And I think you're right. I don't know. I don't think that that's necessarily a commentary on his play so much as his preparedness at this point physically. So I thought Darius Rush did some good things. I still think the Steelers are a little bit light in the slot. Beanie Bishop had some good reps. You know, he's a guy. There's a lot of intrigue about him. He's not real big, but he flies around the field. He's a guy with a lot of energy. But again, he's an undrafted rookie free agent. So I don't know how ready by week 1 he's going to be. So for me, where I was concerned on offense with, right, who's wide receiver 3 right now in Roman Wilson's absence, on defense, it's kind of the same question. Who's corner number 3? I don't have the answer to that right now.
Right. Other than that, I mean, it's a very veteran-laden defense. You do have some pieces like Keanu Benton. I haven't heard his name a lot. I don't know if he popped at all on the defensive line. I have heard Larry Ogunjobi's name a lot, that he's been a very physical presence. Just what's your take on the front 7 in and of itself?
Ogunjobi looks good. He looks like he slimmed down a little bit. He was moving well. Benton looks great. He looks great. Again, I don't know how much you can really glean from some of what we've seen early on when it comes to the defensive linemen. They're not allowed to really tackle fully. They're not allowed to hit anybody, so right. There's probably a lot of technique stuff going on that we don't comment about. Patrick Queen looks phenomenal, man. He was, if I had to say there was one guy whose performance on Thursday when I was there popped the most, it was Patrick Queen. He his lateral movement, his sideline to sideline movement is phenomenal. Now I thought he'd be a little bit thicker, quite honestly, looking at him. He's leaner than I expected him to be. But, Landon Roberts is the guy that's going to be lined up to the tight end side and taking on, a lot of the lead blocks and things like that. If Patrick Queen, if the Steelers can keep linemen, can keep blockers off of Patrick Queen, he is going to make a ton of tackles. He covered, it felt like he won every coverage rep, no matter what he was doing, who he was going against. Here's a quick example. This was such a veteran play. Steelers are in 7 shots, which is the drill everybody loves to talk about, right? You're down there on the 2.5-yard line, the offense against the defense. You got 7 plays to score. They come out in an empty set with Jaylen Warren lined up all the way out to the right as a wide receiver. Patrick Queen now goes out to cover him. Then they shift Jaylen Warren into the backfield. So what's Arthur Smith doing? He's lining up Warren out wide because they want to see, all right, who's he going to draw in coverage? Is he getting a corner or is he getting a linebacker? And their answer was a linebacker, because when Warren shifts into the backfield, Queen shifts back to linebacker. Then they adjust the formation to put 2 receivers to the right-hand side. And then on the snap of the ball, both those receivers run picks at Patrick Queen, and Warren just slides out into the backfield. It's a heck of a route to have to cover. And Patrick Queen deftly slid underneath the first pick. And usually when you go under a pick, you're done. You got to go over it because the back will just beat you to the flat. You won't have the speed to recover. He came under the first pick, and he still had the speed to get on Warren's hip right away. And Justin Fields didn't even throw it because he was worried, I think, about a pick 6. And then he had to come back to a middle of the field read, and the timing was off, and he wound up throwing it out of the back of the end zone. But again, I watched that rep, and I said, the Steelers have not had a linebacker who could make that play since Ryan Shazier. And I'm not going to say Queen is Shazier. That stuff comes a little too early, but they definitely have some similar traits.
Any other defensive takeaways, players that popped that you noticed, maybe like a Nick Herbig or someone like that?
Herbig, yeah. Fast off the ball. When they went to 11 on 11s, he was giving the tackles fits. His first step is so fast. He still needs a second move because a couple times he beats everybody with the speed rush, and then they adjust a little bit. They start to ride him up the field. So, I expect him to probably spend some more time with TJ Watt on those counter moves. But, man, his first step is lightning fast. So he looked really good. Cam Hayward, man, you forget about him sometimes because there's so many other guys to talk about, and he's just been there for so long. But my son, we were down right up against the fence, and my son, who's 11, he was like, oh my God, Dad, look how big Cam Hayward is. He's just a house of a man. And he carries himself with a presence. They're all alphas out there, these are all dogs. But he carries himself like I'm the top dog. He's got a presence about him. All the young guys, they kind of like give him a wide berth, when he kind of comes onto the field and all. You can tell, man, he's like the godfather out there. He's exceptionally well respected, and he looks like $1 million. Well,
that's good to hear. I'm hoping he stays healthy because I think Cam Hayward still has a lot in the tank. I don't want to go to special teams yet because I forgot to mention about the quarterbacks. I've got to talk about the quarterbacks. How did I forget the quarterbacks when we talked about the offense? You probably just saw Russell Wilson do some 7-on-7 stuff, but Justin Fields is the name everyone wants to hear about. What did you see in the field?
Well, as I talked about in the article I wrote, man, anything you've heard about Justin Fields, the good, the bad, I saw all of it. I'll start with the good. He is an unbelievably explosive athlete with a ball in his hands. When he had to step up through the pocket and now get out in open space, man, he was the most dangerous guy on the field. I mean, he is so smooth with the ball in his hand. And there were several times where you could hear Mike Tomlin yelling in the middle of a play, keep him in the pocket. Because when he gets out, man, it just, it's Katie bar the door. And he throws a phenomenal deep ball. I saw him uncork a couple beautiful ones. The one to Pickens I mentioned. He had another awesome corner route he threw with pressure in his face to Connor Hayward. But, and unfortunately there's a but, he holds the ball way too long. He holds the ball. There were several times. And when you're standing up on the hill, you've got the luxury of being able to see everything develop. It's like kind of an all-22 view.
Right.
And you can see these routes coming open. They're not there yet, but they're going to come open. And if he anticipates it and throws on time, he's got it. But it's like he's waiting for the route to be open. And in the NFL, man, you can't wait for something to be open, because if you wait till it's open, it's not open anymore. You have to anticipate it coming open. And I thought that there were several times where if he just got the ball out faster, he had plays to make. But instead, he holds it, and then he goes to another read, and then he starts to scramble around. And the Steelers defense, part of that could be he's learning a new system. And the other part is Terrell Austin's throwing the freaking kitchen sink at him, man. The Steelers are throwing tons of looks. The Steelers defense looked fast, and the Steelers defense looked ready to play a football game. And the offense, again, is still learning a lot of stuff. So maybe that was part of the confusion. But I felt like you read about, hey, he took too many sacks in Chicago. And part of me was hoping it was because the Bears line just wasn't very good. But now I realize, well, part of it is Justin Fields holds the ball too long.
Yeah, that's fair. What about Russell Wilson? Did you see anything from him?
Again, he wasn't involved in any real team activities. Russell Wilson's like the mayor out there, man. He's shaking hands, kissing babies. He's dapping up everybody. I love that about him. I love that. When I was out there, I've been out there the last couple of years, and it's been Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, and Mason Rudolph. And they all were so involved in competing with each other. And they're all so new, both to the Steelers and also in Pickett's case to the league, that they didn't have like the gravitas to be that kind of a leader. They had too much in their own heads that they had to work out. So it was almost like the quarterbacks were insulated from everybody else. Whereas with Russell Wilson, it was the opposite, man. This guy knows. You can probably plug him into any system. He can play in it. He knows what he's doing. He's confident in himself. And he was dapping up everybody out there. And he was talking to everybody out there. I loved it. I love seeing your quarterback has got to be a leader first and foremost. And he felt like that kind of guy. He felt like the kind of guy that when Russell Wilson, who's probably about 5'11", when he gets into the huddle amongst all these 6'4" giants, he's in complete control. And that was the impression I got.
Love it. Let's go to special teams, because the punter has been getting rave reviews at training camp. Did you get to see Cameron Johnston booming some punts?
They didn't do any punt in the live practice. We did see him on the side field by himself, hitting some missiles, which was cool to see. But we did see lots of work on the new kickoff format.
Oh, okay.
And that was fascinating. So the most fascinating thing, Chris Boswell was not kicking. It was Matthew Wright. The most fascinating thing was this. Matthew Wright was putting the ball on the tee sideways. And he was kicking what I can only describe as these knuckleballs down the field into the landing zone, which is between the goal line and the 20-yard line. They were all landing around the 15. And it was really interesting to watch because hang time doesn't matter anymore, right? The kickoff coverage team is moved up. Nobody can move. The blockers, the coverage guys, nobody can move until the ball's either touched or lands. And so it seemed as though the strategy of putting the ball sideways on the tee was so that you would kick a ball that was hard to field. If it lands, it's kind of a knuckleball. Who knows where it's going to bounce? If to catch that thing is hard because you're not getting that nice end over end spin when you put it upright. And so that was interesting, man. And then Danny Smith, here's a guy who's about 100 years old and still coaching like a 20-year-old, man. He spitting gum and yelling at guys and running around like a lunatic. So it's going to be fascinating. I think the kickoff format is going to be really interesting and bring that part of the game back.
Yeah, it's going to be fun, and it's going to be interesting. I know I watched a little bit of the Hall of Fame game and got a feel for what some teams might do, but I think they're all going to adjust. It's a copycat league. We'll see how that goes. My last question for you, Coach, is after seeing what you saw, what are you looking for on Friday in the Steelers' first preseason game? Anything in particular?
I'll be interested to see how Arthur Smith approaches it. I wonder if you got a new system, you got some new pieces in there. Do you say, hey, we're going to throw the kitchen sink out there and see what we can execute well? Or do you simply focus on a couple things? I saw at practice on Thursday, one run scheme, outside zone. and I saw a ton of bootleg off of it. And then I saw their pocket passing game. It wouldn't surprise me if that's what they do on Friday night.
Yeah.
But it also wouldn't surprise me if you read about the Friday Night Lights practice, the offense got the better of the defense, it seems. And it seems like they kind of had them on their heels with all these shifts and motions and movements. And then, you're doing all this smoke and mirrors just at the end of the day so you can punch them in the mouth. And why are you doing all those smoke and mirrors? Because you want them thinking. Because if you just line up, you get into the old school I and you run power. Well, everybody in the world knows you're running power because of that formation. And the defense is going to be aggressive and downhill. But you start moving them horizontally with a million shifts so you can punch them in the mouth. It's like basically like in boxing. Hey, I'm throwing all these body blows to get this dude's hands down, and then I'm going to punch him in the mouth. And I'll be very interested to see which approach they take. Are they going to be vanilla, or are they going to be kitchen sink style?
It's going to be fun to watch. Yeah, Coach. I mean, I appreciate the insight because I love seeing and hearing what people are seeing there. Because sometimes you only get what's kind of glossed over by the media and some fans that are in attendance. So it's going to be exciting. What do you have coming up for SteelCurtainNetwork.com as well as other podcasts you might be working on?
Yeah, so I got an article coming out for Steel Curtain in the next couple of days. That's going to be a follow-up to the training camp visit about Arthur Smith's offense, some of the things we were just talking about here, but really sort of some of the possibilities that exist given what seems to be his philosophy. And then, we did on my call sheet podcast last week, we talked about training camp, but we also talked about what are teams looking to do in preseason game number 1. And we'll move that conversation along a little bit to like, all right, so now how do you evaluate once preseason game number 1's in the books? What's the next step? So as the call sheet goes through August, we're sort of following the calendar from the coaching perspective, and what's happening within the locker rooms, within the meeting rooms right now as we get to each phase of the preseason.
Love it. Sounds awesome. Coach, it's always good to just talk about the Steelers. You can check us out on the NFL Whip Around podcast every Tuesday morning on the FFSN NFL feed. Go to FFSN NFL wherever you get your podcast. You can find us. You can also find it on YouTube by following us at the Fans First Sports Network YouTube channel. But Coach, thanks for your time, man. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.